Consequence Podcast Network.
Welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith With, an audio interview series presented by WFPK Independent Louisville, Consequence of Sound, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Where are you listening from today? Go ahead and hit the subscribe button right there. If you're at iTunes or Podchaser, please do leave a rating and a review as well. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today, my guest is Dicky Barrett of the Mighty Mighty Bosstones. They're back with a new record called While We're At It. We got to talk about the themes that went into the LP, as well as its lead single, Wonderful Day for a Race, and the human race that it's all about, as well as how the Bosstones covering what the world needs now leading into this record sort of influenced the whole idea. We also get into the 25th anniversary of their major label debut, Don't Know How to Party, their cover of Tin Soldiers that was on there, and how that sort of relates to everything that's happening today. And a little insight, will there be 30th anniversary celebrations? Tune in. It's Kyle Meredith with the Mighty Mighty Bosstones.
Hey, Kyle, how are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good, thank you. Where are you calling from?
Louisville, Kentucky.
Home of the Slugger?
Home of the Slugger, the Derby, Muhammad Ali.
Ah, yeah. You know, it was Cassius Clay that left Louisville.
And never really came back as Muhammad Ali. He left Cassius Clay, became Ali out there. And he's buried here now, so I guess he did come back Ali.
Oh, great.
Yeah, he's buried like down by my house. So
God, he's an amazing man.
So
I imagine during his war protesting days, the state of Kentucky was probably mixed feelings.
I'm sure there was. In fact, it's only been recently in the last decade that, and maybe because we had a new mayor elected within that decade, but it took a long time for them to come to terms with Hunter Thompson too.
I don't really know if I've come to terms with Hunter Thompson. As much as I love reading every single thing he's ever written, it's a nut that we may never a code we may never crack. Is Hunter S. Thompson? I think that he's left it that way. No one fully understands him. Do you know that there's a picture illustration of Muhammad Ali on our new album?
Look at that. Well, not that it means the same thing, but the single, if you drop that I think a week earlier, we would have been able to use that for the Derby. There's a little bit of a tie-in, yeah.
Wouldn't that have been good?
That would have been perfect.
I wish I thought of that.
First off, to compliment you on a record, because I feel like I should. There's some Southern manners I should use right now to compliment you guys, the Mighty Mighty Bosstones, on being back again for another record, and it's a really fun record.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I don't feel like we'd put it out. I mean, you can't wait as long as we have between records and then just kind of, crap out something that sucks. So I think that's, if you're going to wait, that you can do one thing is you can put out a record really quickly after the last one and the quality can suffer because of that. Or if you're going to take the time that we took, then you better come up with something. And that's always sort of been our policy is we'll take the exact amount of time that we need to take to make exactly what we want to make. So that's sort of what happened. And thank you, because I feel the same way. And often accused of being self-deprecating and sort of negative towards myself and everything. But, when I've done something well, like this album, then pardon me and get out of my way, I'm going to brag. And I think it's a damn good record. What does
it take to get the crew back together? Is it hard to get the crew all together for an album at this point? I mean, for any band that's been around for a long time.
Use your imagination. It's easier in the modern world to get guys together and to work together. It was when we first started and we were kids, and with our resources being limited, even if we lived in the same area code, you still had to be in the same room to do anything. And I've got recording equipment in my pocket that would rival the recording equipment we used for our first demo tape, and that was when we had to go to a studio to do that. So you can, if I have a thought, a lyrical thought with a melody attached to it, and I want to send it to Joe Gittleman, I can do that in 5 seconds. In the old days, I'd have to go to his house and hope he was home, because I couldn't text and find out. Maybe he's just not picking up his house phone. And hope he was there, fire up his guitar, and then fire up the boombox, and then sing it into that, and whatever. I mean, the modern day, as sad and as romantic as guys being in the same room writing music together, great as that sounds, and the products and whatever we came up with because of that being as good, it's 1,000 times easier to write and record and to make music today. Now, is it as good? That's debatable, you know. And,
no, we've already said it's a good album. You know, that's already out there. We're both on the same page on that one.
Well, there
least.
you go.
So, yeah,
there you go. You're not going to do another lap around It's Good Park. Look, dude, I'm Southern, but I'm not going to kiss your asshole into it.
Well, you know, as fun as the record is, obviously you've always done that nice balance. You know, it's you can dance to the music, you can move around to the music, but there's always serious subjects. And this one is it's a long, hard look at America. But what's surprising is that it doesn't sound like you come out of it with your head down. Like there's still a lot of charge, optimism, fists up in the air.
I can't be like that. That would be that would be waving a white flag and admitting defeat. And I don't want to be like that. I don't want to admit that this is the end. And at times it certainly can feel that way. And days that are as hopeless and as desperate as any that I've lived through. But you know, the truth of the matter is that there's tomorrow, and as long as there's hope, there's hope.
I mean, you guys went into this record having covered What the World Needs Now. I think that came out last year. Was that coincidence, or did that sort of set the theme thematically for you?
Can't you imagine, like when Burt Bacharach wrote that song, he wrote those lyrics saying at that time, that in that point in time, that's what the world needed. So the feeling was very much the same when we said, hey, what is the statement and what is the message? We were going into a throwdown, and the truth of the matter is we had done a hometown throwdown, and those are shows that we do in Boston every year, and for Bosstones fans, and it's a pilgrimage for a lot of people who come to Boston, and it's, you know, right after Christmas, 3 shows, and to celebrate the Bosstones and Bosstones fans and everything that is our world. And so we did a real kind of Boston feeling throwdown the year before we put out What the World Needs Now. And it was a tribute to the venue that we pretty much grew up in, called the Rat in Boston. And we recreated what it looked like, and it's gone now. The Rat is gone now. And we had all bands that were like very Rat-centric and very Rat, like that were friends of ours, and they played with us. So having done that, we did the next year, we wanted to kind of be more global and more about the world. We invited bands from England, Japan, and all to do it. So, and to celebrate that, we released What the World Needs Now, and it couldn't have been more appropriate or more a better statement at that time than that. So I don't think that there's a time when it doesn't need love, you know, in this world. I think at all times, somewhere, someone could use some love. You know, it's never a bad time for that song, I would say. And I love Burt Bacharach too. I love the way he writes songs. It's that, you know, call me corny, I don't give a shit.
Nothing corny about it. It's a classic. Everybody knows the words of that song. Everybody knows the words of that
yes.
song. It's only frustrating that, you know, he wrote it 40, 50 years ago, and we're still having to sing it almost as a plea instead of a celebration. I think that's the frustrating thing about that song.
Another thing that's interesting, and you can go, well, you know, there's hope, and gosh, it's interesting that the Bosstones are making this record right now, and it seems like weird sort of superhero ska seems to come around when we need it the most, whether it's that point in the 90s and when things seem fairly hopeless, but this summer, you know, the English Beat are putting out a new record. There's a record from a young ska band called The Interrupters coming out. There's some friends of ours on the West Coast, the Mad Caddies, are putting out a record, and people are very excited about that. And we played a festival in Long Beach, California, and it was all ska bands. Travis Barker of Blink 182 and among other things put it together with John Feldman from Goldfinger, and there were 30,000 people came to this, and it was just ska bands, Fishbone, the guys in Sublime, St. Ferris, Less Than Jake. And you'd go, oh, you know, boy, that feels very kind of vintage and very sort of dated, but it wasn't. People were like, oh gosh, I just want to, you know, fuck everything and dance and enjoy the sunshine and the feel good music, and, you know, without, you know, lowering my my IQ, and here's some good, smart, danceable music, and so I feel like this summer, would be a nice time for us to go, okay, let's exhale a little bit, let's breathe easy, and just try to enjoy ourselves, and maybe when we come out the other side of it, maybe things will be different. And once again, without hope, then there's no hope.
Well, I was looking back at the just anniversary dates and history dates and thinking about what you're saying there and how it lines up, because it's also the 25th anniversary of Don't Know How to Party, major label debut, and you had 10 Soldiers. You'd covered 10 Soldiers on there, and the Iraq War was going on, and that seemed like that was the beginning of the mainstream acceptance of ska punk, everything that you guys were doing. Similar situations going on.
Thanks for noticing that. I remember when that Iraq War, we were traveling around as a young band, and before we put that record out, and that's pretty much what inspired us doing it. And Stiff Little Fingers, who wrote it about the turmoil that existed in Northern Ireland, and that sort of thing. And so it felt right, and we were 8 guys in a van going, holy shit, the shit has truly hit the fan right now. Yeah. And when you're listening to a war on the radio, which is really strange, like you could just actually hear the bombs and somebody going, I'm now, half a mile from where and it's being reported on, and we're traveling to Lawrence, Kansas to play a punk rock show. It's real kind of sobering and surreal at the same time. And so, I can remember it so clearly, going, gosh, we should say something about this. And that was the statement we made. And, thanks once again to high-quality songwriters such as the lads from Stiff Little Fingers.
I mean, you still play that song in the live set, too. Like, that wasn't a song that went away. And
No, there always seems to be a war you can sing about. I wish it was different. I wish it could be nostalgic and go,
right.
This is about something that hasn't happened for a long time. Hey, some of you younger kids don't remember something called war, but when I was a kid, there was an awful lot of it.
I guess that's a little bit of the backstory on the new single, "Wonderful Day for a Race." It's sort of almost, what makes it. Ironic's not the right word on this one. I'm sure you know what I'm getting to here, but when you think of all that out there, and here's that saying, "It's a wonderful day for a race," of course you're talking about the human one, and then you think of everything that we just talked about, and you're like, oh man, I don't feel like that a lot of times.
True, but I think that's sort of the grain of sand, the thing that you can kind of always hold on to, which is, as long as you have yourself, and as long as you have today, there's something, it's a really good starting point. And I think that I have myself, I have today, and I think that is wonderful. And I think that, if there's, and you sew that together with, it's not just me, there's a lot of other people that feel the same way. And then, you can build from there. I think that it's a good starting point. It's also something that my dad used to say to me when I was a kid. And he would get me every time, and because I was a very dumb kid, and who eventually grew up. I'm very proud to say that I grew up to be a very dumb adult. But as a dumb boy, he used to go, and he was a very funny guy, and still is a very funny guy, and sharp-witted, and constantly just real kind of. If you talk about you fast-talking East Coasters. He was generic. He was cardboard cut out of all of that, and he would go, "It's a wonderful day for the race, right, kid?" And then, of course, I would start searching my brain as you talk. Was today the marathon? Is Kentucky Derby? What is he talking about? And then I go, try to be quick with him. I go, "What race? The human race." Close my eyes to laugh, and it'd be gone. But that was his sort of style and his joke, and I always kind of liked the expression and built off of that lyrically.
Well, it is done really well, and to follow along with sort of the playfulness of the verses, of how it leads back to that every time.
Well, that's it. The verses kind of say, we are just specks, but that's not bad. And it talks of how insignificant we truly are, but really as significant as we say we are. So it kind of varies. It vacillates between those kind of two ideas. Are we something or are we nothing, or does it matter? Are we something in the middle, and does it really matter? It's a wonderful day for the race, and I'm talking about the human one. So I'm overthinking my own lyrics, but I spend so much time with them that I am.
Well, no, this the album itself, it as you said, it sort of completes a trilogy.
The 3 records are a trilogy, and people are constant. And the first one was Pinpoints and Gin Joints, and the second one was The Magic of Youth.
Mm-hmm.
And then now, While We're At It, and it's just because that's how I built them, and that's what they were in my head, and that's what I was thinking was going to be these 3 records that I'm making, and they're going to say what I want to say and what I'm feeling at the times that they're created. And I set out to do that at the very first one, and then I've had other conversations with other people asking me about, I heard it's a trilogy. Why is it a trilogy? And I go, well, it just is. And then I had this discussion with Gary, the publicist, and he couldn't get his brain around it. I go, well, I'm going to send you the other 2 records again, and see if you can answer that. And I sent the records, and I go, now, is it a trilogy? And he goes, oh yeah, it's definitely a trilogy. Just listening to the records was what explained it, and I do a piss poor job of explaining it myself, other than that it just is.
The point I was looking at here anyway was as a snapshot of America, and it's America through your eyes, and the world at large, and the stories within, when it started versus to when it is now. I mean, that's been about a decade with a lot of changes
right
in the middle.
Yeah.
And sort of like what's been the most noticeable changes in America over the course?
I think that it's obvious. I think we know the changes, and I don't really want to say it. I mean, I think that it's been a decade. So figure out the math, and I think that the Bosstones politics and how what we think and what we believe in. I think we've been doing that for so many years. So I think it's a roller coaster ride of both good and bad. So but lent itself to this sort of artistic project at the same time, sadly, but realistically. Basically, what I'm saying is that I have the rare privilege to be able to express myself through words and music, and that's really sort of what I want to do. The things that I have to say, I get to say them on Bosstones albums, and so that's really what I want that to do the talking, and not take anything away from it or add anything to it.
I'll actually wrap it up here with some lighter fare, because I think it's next year is the 30th anniversary of the Bosstones. As far as your first released record anyway goes, and I know there's some years before that where you're playing live. Are you guys planning anything for that? Do you do anything for the big round anniversaries?
We did. We went out on the road and we did Let's Face It, 20-year anniversary of that, and we played the album in its entirety in different marketplaces. I think we're going to do another one in Los Angeles, and so we do celebrate milestones and anniversaries and things like that for the band, but nothing consciously, So it's the kind of thing where all of a sudden our fans will remind us and say, it's this, and then we should do something for that, but and you've just given me a really good reminder on that one. So as soon as I'm finished talking with you, I'll call the other guys and go, hey, do you know it's our 30th anniversary? With the exception of the few years that we just hung around Joe's basement.
Well, while you're at it, throw at them that it's the 20th anniversary of the Zig Zig Dance on Elmo Palooza. So you can also
is it really?
Celebrate that. Yeah, it is. 1998. 20
years ago, I worked with Elmo.
That's right.
Actually, we worked with the Count, the Zigzag Dance it was called, and the thing that really bums me out is when we worked with the Count, he looked older than me, but now 20 years later, he hasn't aged a day. And I think that's partly because he's a vampire, but I think it's also partly because he's a puppet.
That is an astute observation.
I now look older yes, I now look older than him, and it's so I'm sort of irked by that.
I feel like there's a dad joke in there, about counting the days or something. But
1 year, 2 years, you're 50-something years old, Dicky.
Hey, that Elmo Palooza, that's a Grammy-winning album right there. That's something
That
proud
was
to be
a
a part of.
Grammy-winning album. I think all the puppets got at Grammys before us, but it does qualify me to say I'm a Grammy Award-winning artist.
It's true. Count it.
Yeah, it is, and it's another thing that we've done that there's zero shame. I enjoyed doing it. I enjoyed what it was. And the same thing could be said for our appearance in Clueless. And it was like, oh, you're in Clueless. And it's a lot of people's favorite movie, and a lot of people liked us in that movie. And it allowed us to pay both our taxes that at the time we were having tax problems, and allowed us to continue to tour because they paid us nicely, and it didn't suck. And it was Amy Heckerling who made the movie Fast Times at Ridgemont High. So you can't go wrong with that. Really,
that's classic movie, classic scenes, and a great song on the soundtrack too. No, I'll co-sign on that.
Yeah,
it's written in history. You don't need me, but I'll put my name on that list.
I feel like I do need you. I feel like after having talked to you now for the amount of time we've spoken, I feel like what I've learned, what I've gained from this is I actually do need you.
Well,
I never knew it.
Yeah, I'm happy to be part of your life. For at least 37 minutes, but know that I'm out here listening. That's a good enough for me, because I have been a fan for a long, long time, and it has been more than an honor to get this time with you. I mean that.
Thanks so much, man. Thanks for talking to me.
Oh, thanks for talking to me. I can't wait to see you guys play these songs live. I'll be sure to check out a show, and again, thanks for the music. Congratulations on this.
Thanks, pal.
All right, buddy. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
And thanks to Dicky Barrett for giving me the call. The new Mighty Mighty Bosstones record is called While We're At It. You can subscribe to Consequence of Sound's YouTube channel. That's right. Go ahead and click that right now to keep up with your favorite artists and interviews. For you podcast fans, head over to iTunes or Podchaser. Give us a rating or a review, and especially anywhere you're listening from right now, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And then head over to WFPK.org, where you hear me do a show every Monday through Thursday from noon to 3 Eastern. I'm Kyle Meredith, and I'll see you next time.
Consequence Podcast Network.